Hello, I'm Say, and today I'll be presenting about Things Fall Apart. And so, Things Fall Apart is a really interesting novel about how colonization can affect tradition and how imperialism and European influence changed the culture in Africa. And in this case, it's from the perspective of Chinua Achebe, the author, who actually thought that one of the most influential books, The Heart of Darkness, was actually very racist and did not consider the perspective of Africans who were under suppression or were oppressed by the Europeans. And so today we'll be talking about more analysis and to be comparing my analysis to other sources such as SparkNotes or Shmoop. So first we'll be talking about the basic themes that are discussed in the other sources as I mentioned. So most of these sources talk about fear and how Okonkwo is very scared about how he doesn't want to become like his father because his father was often ridiculed because his father was known to be a bit kind-hearted. He did not fit the warrior type of his own clan, and so Okonkwo decided to become the complete opposite of his father, fearing that he might be ridiculed just like him if Okonkwo showed any of his father's traits. And that's why Okonkwo actually doesn't feel a connection to his son because his son is so much like his father. And also, there's a huge tie with religion, using gods and spirits and masks such as the Agugu mask, and these kind of become symbolisms for the culture that is present in this novel. And oftentimes, like in sources like SparkNotes or Shmoop, they also talk about sin and how Okonkwo he commits sin. He does not follow the village traditions. How he was known to accidentally kill his friend's son, which led to his exile. And this all becomes a part of the following the traditions and customs of the clan. And so, what I would like to further discuss about is how reputation and societal value and masculinity, how these are actually not really distinct themes, but they're all combined together. And so, for example, as I show here, Okonkwo seems to hold these values of masculinity, but truthfully, he's actually very insecure about these qualities. He is very insecure. And so rather he's more pressured to become more like a warrior himself because he feels that he is becoming more valued by the clan if he demonstrates this masculinity. And sometimes his need to fulfill that image of this masculine image of himself what causes him the most depression, and it causes him the most dissatisfaction with himself because, for example, when he's pressured to kill his own adopted son, Ikemefuna, he has to kill him despite the fact that he has established his bond with him, and since the village, he does not want the village to view him as a scaredy cat or someone who doesn't have the courage to kill according to the village's orders. He does so, and it costs him his happiness. It costs him a bit of his humanity, and so, and rather, this masculinity is a product of society, and this masculinity is all to fuel his reputation, and so these are actually all connected, and so and that's why I would like to connect it to the fear aspect, because what I don't really agree with this analysis regarding fear is that he doesn't allow fear to dominate him and drive his actions. Rather, it's from a desire to repress his insecurity. He's not really driven by fear, but what he wants to do is to repress it. He doesn't want to show that he is scared, and so if he doesn't let it dominate him, rather he actually tries to master it by showing this masculine image of himself. So actually, I kind of disagree with this analysis, and also for some reason, find this kind of hilarious. They use this kind of like ghostly fear. Of course, it's not a ghostly fear, but it's rather just as I stated before, an insecurity with the individual, with the person's how the person's being perceived by others, and rather Okonkwo is really shaped by his environment more than his own personal feelings. Whether he feels love or whether he feels compassion, he suppresses those in order to become more favorably viewed by others. And so something I'll also like to talk about, regarding masculinity, this is a SparkNotes interpretation. So rather, it's about his rashness. And so basically Okonkwo, he doesn't really think about things. He acts rashly and impetuously, and so it says that Okonkwo's idea of manliness is not the clan's, but it actually is. The clan is known to be full of warriors, and Okonkwo gained his reputation because the clan values that. So he's desperate to be valued, and it's not really that he wants to be masculine. Rather, if his, like, let's say for example, his father was indeed valued by the clan because he was so kind-hearted, and his father was, let's say, his father was known to be a very wise figure, or his father was valued to be one of, wise elders, or he was valued for his kindness. Then of course Okonkwo would follow his father's example. But what happened? The clan devalued what his father stood for, what his father was as a person, and so that's why Okonkwo feels this pressure. So rather, Okonkwo's ideal of manliness is actually derived from the clan's expectations on the people, on the men in particular, and so the fact that in this interpretation of masculinity that it's not Okonkwo, that it's Okonkwo's idea and it's not the clan's, I think is actually kind of incorrect. Right. So finally, I'd like to talk about the writing style. And so I feel like this quote kind of perfectly captures what I would like to talk about in terms of how the author in this book, Things Fall Apart, captures the culture so well. And so this is a specific example. The market is a wonderful place. There are so many people on it that if you throw up a grain of sand, it would not find a way to fall to earth again. And so what's so unique about this expression is that when it uses comparisons or similes or metaphors to describe a certain situation, people describe it in different ways depending on what they're familiar with, what kind of cultural upbringing they had. And so as you can see, you wouldn't really think about, throwing up a grain of sand, or thinking about, oh, a sand would not fall to the earth because there's so many people. These kind of expressions are so unique, and that's what kind of forms his writing style. He uses the various, various tools, maybe the various nature or traditional elements of this African culture, of Okonkwo's clan, in order to perfectly describe how the culture is like, how people interact with each other. And what's so different about this book compared to other books such as Heart of Darkness is that he tries to show that these people are people. The only difference is that just like anyone else, they have some kind of laws, or they have some kind of tradition set in place, so that these people are really influenced by their surroundings just like any other person, and they are foremost people. They can think, of course, and they're very human. They have these kind of creative, and of course a sense of comic relief as well. And so I feel like through this writing style, this is what kind of perfectly shows why Chinua Achebe writes in this fashion. And so I feel like this is as far as I goes in terms of analysis. Thank you for listening. Hope you really enjoyed my further analysis on themes and character motivations, and also how the writing style affects the book. Thank you.